So now we are ready to move on to making sugar flowers, and this is going to be another exciting phase of this course itself. So the first flower, I just wanted to keep it pretty much simple, where we just learn how to cut out the petals and how we're just going to wire them, because sugar flowers, when it comes there, we are going to make it in a way that the petals are going to be independent and individual, and then we are going to tape them together, so it kind of gives the movement of a real flower itself. So for Cosmos, I have the tool set out right here, and this is a silicone mold for making the flower centers. And if you don't have one, that is fine, because I'm also going to use some easy tips, like so. This is the semolina and with yellow petal dust, okay, and I've just again processed that in the food processor, which is nothing but mixie, and I've just kept it inside this bowl. I'm going to add this like the pollens on the center. So even if you don't have a silicone mold like that, it doesn't matter. We could just keep it without any texture, because these pollens are going to make it like pretty much realistic. And then what I have here are the different sizes of the ball tools. And then we have the wire cutter. This is going to use this to cut out the wires, because wires is what you will use for the putting the petals together, right? And then that's the floral tape, and there are a few colors. I'm just going to use the light green. And then the most important tool right here is the cutter itself. So specific to each of the flower, we kind of get the cutters, and it is important to have them before we proceed to that specific flower. And in case you don't have a cutter at all, then obviously we could take the templates out from the internet, and when it's going to be a pretty much a task to go on using the template to hand cut each of the petals as well. So I have the cutters in different sizes. Obviously for Cosmos, one size is what we are going to use for the entire flower. But why we have three different sizes? It depends on what are the size of the whole flower itself that we are going to make. Now, if you really want a smaller Cosmos, then you could choose this. Now, I will be choosing one of the size, and that size I will be using for all the petals. And this is again a Cosmos veiner. So this cutter and the veiner comes together as a set. So the veiners are usually silicone, and they are quite flexible like this, and they are double-sided veiners again, and they'll be used to get this impression on the petal, and wiring will also be done in this process of veining. We keep the petals here on top of the silicone veiner, and we just use the other the double-sided, the other one on the top, and then kind of press it, and so the wire will get attached, and also the petal will just take the vein. So a double-sided veiner is also important. And then just have some corn flour in a bowl, and obviously a rolling pin. And so this is another important thing that we need. It's a foam pad, and you can see it is like quite firm. It's not a sponge. We need a foam pad. It's like quite firm there. We just need that to keep the petal on top, and then just work on the edges where in case we need to ruffle, or we just need to thin it out and all that, okay? And obviously a craft mat right here. A smaller size is fine, because it's pretty much simple. You just need to sit and then keep doing your work. And another most important thing that we need are the wires. Now here I have a few different thickness. The thicker one is needed for the center. I don't need all three, but I just kept it here to show you. I'll be using like one. I'll cut that into half and then use it for the flower. So this is the thicker one that I will use for the center. This could be somewhere around say 20 gauge wire, and this is pretty much a 26 gauge, and it is pretty much flimsy, you can see, and thin as well. And because the Cosmos petals are going to be like not too heavy, we're just using the thin possible wire. And So I just keep them aside. So one last thing is the one right here, which is a flexible sponge, and it is also having the, usually we could call it a flower drying mat or pad. It's like flexible and it has some dents, and there are a few different sizes of the dents that are available that comes with a sponge like this, and these are available in the baking supplies stores or art and craft stores as well. And we need this because we don't want the petal to kind of have like a proper shape, like a cup shape like that, or anything upside down. We don't want it like very monotonous for the cosmos. We just want it to have some different shapes for each of the petals, and for which I'm just going to use this to dry out my petals. So to begin with, I'm just going to, and another most important thing is the gum paste that I have here. So I'm just going to knead that on the craft mat. So the first thing is something called as a sausage is what I'm going to do. I just need a very, very little bit before I'm ready for making the petals. I'm going to make a sausage. So sausage is something that will help the petal to get attached to the wire. So I'm just taking the thin wire and the wire cutter. I'm just going to cut this wire into half. I'm going to keep one of it here. I'm just going to knead this. Take about a small peppercorn sized gum paste. Okay. And then I have this wire. Now this peppercorn sized gum paste, I'm just going to attach it under the wire. So let me just move this aside so you could just see it pretty much clearer. So this peppercorn sized gum paste, I'm going to attach it under the wire like that, and then press it using my index and the thumb. And by holding this wire, I mean, don't rotate this wire using your left hand or the non-dominant hand, and hold it tight, and using the index and the thumb, just twist it and bring it all the way to the tip of the wire. And this needs to be even and smooth. You don't want to have like dense, a thicker area or a thinner area. So just press it out evenly. And once the sausage is there, now I'm just going to check what is the height of my sausage. So out of the three, I'm just going to pick the middle sized cutter. And now the sausage should not be like longer than the cutter itself. I just want the sausage's height to be 3/4 the length of the cutter, the petal that we are going to use. So I'll just make the marking there, and I don't need this part. So the sausage's height should be 3/4 the height of the petal that we are using. And now I would be needing about 7 to 8 petals to go on cosmos. So in that way, I will have to make 7 to 8 such sausages for the entire flower that I have to make. Now I'm just going to show you one petal, and when you're going to make, and if you're making it for the very first time, then you will make one sausage and one petal and finish it off. And then for your first flower, it is better that you do it that way, because you could still be learning to figure out how to get the petals right with all the techniques that you learn. And once you get the complete hang of the entire process, and that is when you will move on to making as many sausages as you want for as many petals that you need for that particular flower. Because now we make these sausages and then leave them aside, and they are going to dry, and by the time we get to the petal and you're going to vein it or attach it to the sausage, now if this is quite dry, it will not stick to the petal that is being cut. However, when you're actually doing it even later on with the more number of sausages at a time, or even I still have one to go, I will want to keep them sealed airtight. So I put the sausage into a ziploc like that and get all the air out and seal it tight. And I will also just fold it and then keep it aside. It is also a good idea to have a damp cloth, which is nothing but have like a cotton towel, and wet the towel, squeeze up all the water and then place that on top of it, and that will help air not to pass through the cover, and it will keep your sausage quite soft and not allow it to dry. And this step is pretty much important because with dried sausages, your petals and veining steps are going to be a little too overwhelming. So we just need to save the sausages that are made. I have one, and that I'm just going to set it aside. But like I said, start with one, let's finish one petal, and then we'll learn how to make more petals together at a time. Now for the next step, I'm just going to take up very little gum paste, because that is the key, because we want to roll the gum paste pretty thin, because the flowers petals are like extremely thin, and by that time if I'm going to take such a big portion of the gum paste and start rolling, the scope of rolling it quite big will just not be there, because by the time you just have a sheet of this size and then you don't want to roll it even more further, and you just want to start cutting out from whatever sheet that you have, irrespective of what the thickness is. And it is also very difficult to roll out like a really big sheet and making all of them like the entire sheet, you want to roll it to pretty thin, and how many petals are you going to cut out of it, and all of them are just going to get dried. So it's important to just start working on a smaller portion and see if it is sticky at this moment. You could just touch upon some corn flour, and if you feel your paste is dry, then you could just rub some shortening or margarine into your fingers like that, and then knead it out. Now just softened up, because that first part of kneading is completely necessary, and just make a ball, and I'm just going to start using the rolling pin and see if it is sticky. And then we need corn flour. You don't need a lot. Just keep removing it from the counter or your craft mat. You could use a craft mat. I'm not using it because I don't want the lines from the craft mat to just come in between you guys watching what exactly is happening with the, because they are quite minute, and the observation is important as you keep watching what I'm doing. Now if it is sticky, so you just can observe the way I roll. Usually I don't prefer rolling it like how you do fondant. I don't want to do that. I start from the middle, and then with pressure just roll it out once, and that will help thin down the petal as much. And once you've just rolled it from the center outward, and then start from the center and then roll it towards you, and that will just thin down that side. And you could just turn and start from the center, roll it towards you, and start from the center and roll it away from you. Make sure if it is sticking, just release it So start from the center and then roll it outward. It could be towards you or away from you, but center and out. So I'm just going to avoid the part while cutting. So it's important to spend this time to roll it thin, and that is the most important part that you need to observe with this step. I mean, I could have just stopped rolling quite a while before and I could have started cutting out the petals, but it is important to just have it super thin. So check for the thickness, and now if you're using your craft mat, then by placing it, you will just need to observe, you start seeing the lines of the craft mat under the sheet of the gum paste. And when you have something like that, and then you know you have rolled it quite thin, so until then you will have to keep rolling it and then also get it verified from me in the support group. Okay. So once this is done, we just get the cutter. So depending on the quality of the cutter, there are two ways you can see how you could just use to cut the petals. Now you could just hold it on one end and make sure the sharp side of the cutter is on the rolled out gum paste, and then the other side is a little bit blunt, so you could actually use your hands to cut. And now if this side is also quite sharp, then you have to be careful in using your hands and just not have your hands cut through, and that could be an accident. So now I'm just going to move this entire thing like that. Now your gum paste, rolled gum paste, if it is stuck to your mat, and now you're going to do this, the sheet, if it doesn't move from your craft mat or the counter, then you need to take it out and then dust some corn flour under the rolled out gum paste, and then let this completely get itself disconnected. And so you have the petal cut out in the cutter and this sheet comes out independently. Okay, so then I have the petal cut. And now even if you are going to work on one petal only, by the time you are ready to vein or wire the petal, this needs to be sealed again in the ziplock. So put it inside the ziplock. You don't want it to get exposed to the air, and get the air out. Seal and then just place it aside. And now if your cutter is not good, which means if this flat surface you're trying to cut and if the gum paste petal is not releasing itself out from the sheet, the other way to do is keep the blunt side down and place your gum paste on top of the cutter and then use the rolling pin. And that way, even if the cutter is not even on the cutting side, then by this way, getting the help of the rolling pin on top, you will be able to cut through the petal, and then again you will have a clean cut. So you see the cutter, because the quality of the cutters that we get are quite different in different places, and depending on which way you are able to cut, then you will have your petals cut as well. So that will be the second step. I am immediately going to keep this sealed. And this has to be saved. Now if I'm going to cut more petals, then whatever with the sheeting they had done, I would cut more petals and keep. Now I'm just going to knead this, make it soft, and then put it back along with the cling wrapped gum paste, because you don't want to waste gum paste, and saving them then and there without letting it dry so much is quite important. So for the next step, I'm going to get the foam pad and my ball tool and also the petal. And then the first thing I'm going to do, we have rolled out the gum paste sheet quite thin, but we are also going to make it even more thin by stretching out the petal and just elongating it a little more. So what that will do, will just not keep each of the petal like exactly the same. We are looking at some petals, I mean most of the petals to have its own bit of shape and size a little bit. So we're just trying to change the shape, at least to make it a bit longer, especially for this particular flower. So just use the ball tool and extend it outward. So we are not going to do this. We don't want to increase the shape on the sideways. We're just trying to make it longer. So how much pressure can you do? Depending on how fresh the petal is, I mean if it is like quite soft, some extra pressure will just tear up the petal, and that you will know only when you're actually working on. So once you have one petal worked, and then you know you're actually elongating it and not tearing up the petal, and then you know that the petal has come out good. Also, that much pressure is the right pressure that you should be putting. Now if the shape itself is not changed, like if it is not even elongated the size, which means you haven't even put in any effort. Now so this is the cutter, the original size, right? And now so I've just worked upon a little bit to elongate. So that is the change that you will also be looking at. And now once that step is done, I'm just going to get the sausage out, and then I'm also going to have the veiner, the double-sided veiner. So I'm just going to get the glue. Glue is nothing but water and CMC, and then you mix it and leave it overnight. The next day it is just going to be a viscous solution like this. You just need a little bit. I'm just going to put this aside, and now I just wanted to keep this closed, so trying as much possible to not let the gum paste expose to the air. And now with this veiner, I'm going to place the petal, and depending on the size of the petal and then the veiner, your petal may not fit in the veiner, and if it fits in, well and good. If it doesn't, the first thing that we will do is to place that first half that will fit in the petal, and I'm just going to add the glue. I've already picked up the glue in the brush. You don't want too much. Just add the glue in the center where we are going to keep the sausage. So place the sausage there. So your gum glue, the glue part should be right enough to the size of the sausage. I'm going to place the top veiner and press it here on the top first. I'm going to gently remove this. And I'm going to place it a little upward for the bottom half to work. And here this time I'm just going to press it on the bottom part and then leave the other side without pressing too much, because that part is already pressed well. Now we just press it out, veined, and then the wire and the sausage is also stuck to the petal well. So you can see the petal is just attached to the wire, right? And now depending on whether you're working on a closed flower or an open flower, After we're just taking it out of the way now, we just need to decide at this point of time whether the sausage is going to be facing upward or whether the sausage is going to be facing downward. For an open flower like Cosmos, the sausage should be facing down. So right from how you took it out of the vena, at this stage you just need to flip it down and put the sausage down. Why? Because it is a open flower. Okay. So now it goes with the sausage down on the foam pad again. Obviously there is glue, right, on the sausage that we added. So we just brush some corn flour on the foam pad as well, and then I'm just going to get the ball tool. So now as you use a ball tool, we just need to hold it like a pen or a pencil, and then you're just going to thin down the edges of the petals, and that way don't hold the petal, just allow it to move. And using the ball tool, just use a ball tool, like say half of the ball tool will be on the edge of the petal and half of the ball tool will be on the foam pad, and that way just keep going, and that will just thin down the petal. Now observe, half of the ball tool is on the foam pad and half on the edge of the petal, and just slide through with pressure, and that will just get the little bit of waves and also thin down the edge. I'm just going to do here on the top as well. Now what is not the right way of using the ball tool, this is something that I'm going to do and show, but I don't want you to do that, okay, which is nothing but holding the ball tool and putting the ball tool all the way inside the petal, and the ball tool not touching the foam pad is not the right thing to do. That will not give you the thin edges, because most of the time I see my students do this mistake. So I want to show you something that I don't want you guys to do, which is holding it here all the way inside and then trying to thin. This is not okay. Hold the ball tool, half of it on the petal and half of it on the foam pad, and run it through. This is just to thin. Now in the further lessons where it needs to be ruffled, I will be showing you how you would do that to ruffle. For now we just learn how to thin, which is just simple rolling the ball tool on the edge of the petal, and that way the ball tool will be touching the foam pad and the edge of the petal both at the same time, and that is very important for you to keep in mind. Now once this part is done, the next step is to dry it to get the shape. For Cosmos, we know that the shape is quite random. In the further lessons, I'll be showing you different other ways of shaping different other flowers. So, but for the first one for you to do, let's keep it quite simple. So, sometimes the petal can be here, and sometimes the petal can, the top edge of the petal can be falling outward, and some, like we will be making like 6 to 7 petals, right, for the Cosmos. So some of them will be within like this, and sometimes you can place it outward and let the outside of the petal fall out, and sometimes you can just place it quite in like that, and sometimes you just want to place it on the top. But each of them should be different, and even if you're not going to pay so much attention, start placing them on the pad like this, the drying pad, and have each of the petals made in different shapes, drying out in different shapes, and then we'll be ready to actually tape it. Now I am going to continue making the rest of the petals and allow it to dry for about say 2 hours at least. Once it just holds the shape, now it is like right after I've just placed it on the foam pad, and this is the shape I'm expecting it to just come out after it's dried. Now if I'm going to lift it, this shape should just stay and be stiff. But if I'm going to lift and if it just changes and then droops, then it is not dried. When depending on your climate, this 2 hours, what I'm saying is like a non-humid room where it is AC is going on. 2 hours or even sometimes 1 hour should be fine with a good gum paste. And if you are in a humid area, then it may not dry in 2 hours, and those times we need to figure out how we are going to let it dry. But if there is no AC, then we have to figure out how to get that drying, like maybe a heating pad, or maybe with the silica gel packs, or the other ways to figure out, obviously. But AC is so much better and safer to work with sugar flowers. Now I'll just get back after I've done making the rest of the petals, and once they are dried, I'm going to show you how all the petals are going to look together. So I have the rest of the petals made, and you can see the different shapes each of the petals have dried out. And that's what we want, especially for Cosmos. And this one is like on the sides also, it's just expanded. Okay, so now once we have all these petals ready, we are good to go to tape them together and to complete making the flower. Before which we have to make the center for the flower, and I'll catch you up in that lesson where I will teach you how to make the center of Cosmos.